Welcome back. Today's headlines of ChemCon TV News Bulletin are ChemCon Europe's 2023's welcome reception, an interview with CEFIC and DG Environment on the transition pathways towards a green, digital and resilient economy. Our local reporter Charles talks about the Viennese coffee house culture, and to start with Mercedes Viñas and Christian Gründling with some soundbites from yesterday's workshop on enforcement and our 2 in-depth seminars.
We had in the morning the workshop on enforcement. We had in the first seminar an overview of classification rules around the world, of course with a focus on the latest revision of CLP regulation. And in the second seminar we learned how new substances and polymers, including all the data requirements, are handled globally.
We had a very early start this morning, but the topic was of a lot of interest to companies. It was the topic of enforcement. The priorities that the inspectors shared for the coming years were online sales and imports. Then the companies exchanged a lot about enforceability. It is very clear that industry expects future regulation to be enforceable. Then we moved on to discuss the UN GHS system, which turns out to be not so harmonized, but there are many initiatives around the world that are making progress towards this harmonization goal. The EU CLP regulation is under review, and it may present some challenges for companies with some of the changes proposed. And there were a lot of discussions on what could be solutions to these challenges should they materialize in the regulatory process. Finally, it is clear that digitalization is the way to go for finding solutions to some of the challenges in terms of supply chain communication that companies have around the world.
Let's connect with our local reporter and learn more about yesterday's welcome reception. Hi Charles, where are you?
I'm here at the Museum of Applied Arts, located in one of the iconic buildings of Vienna, and this building was founded by him, Emperor Franz Joseph I. The MAC was founded in 1863 under Emperor Franz Joseph I as the Imperial Royal Austrian Museum of Art and Industry. During yesterday's welcome receptions, your guest could make a step back in time to Vienna 1900, featuring everything from furniture and fashion to ceramics and contemporary design, providing visitors with a captivating journey through the world of applied arts and design innovation. Part of the Vienna 1900 exhibition are the famous drawings of Gustav Klimt, a masterpiece of Art Nouveau and a prominent work of the Vienna secession movement. This frieze was originally created for the dining hall of Palais Stockley in Brussels. Your guests had an excellent dinner in the captivating column hall of the MAC, offering a sense of timeless elegance. An excellent location to network and to reconnect with each other during the welcome reception. Of course, there's much more to see here at the MAC. One of the exhibitions I really would recommend you is focusing on critical consumptions, a must-see.
Thank you, Charles. Yes, today's time has many challenges. One of them is the transition into a more sustainable world. Please watch the highlights of the interview I had with Sylvie Lemoine and Peter Koitar on the transition pathways towards a green, digital and resilient economy. For these key stakeholders and partners to start selling the transition pathways as hotcakes, what is needed to make it a success?
The first thing is political will and leadership. First and foremost, you need to stick to your goals. I would very much agree. Don't change the goalposts all the time. At some point, we just need to get into it. Ideally, and I know it's hard right now, you need economic and geopolitical stability because it's one of the fundamentals to reduce uncertainty. You need to attract the young talent, the new generation. You need to shape their thinking to be positive and geared towards sustainable, greener, digital. I'm sure there's a lot of more things you need, but fundamentally, I think the leadership and the drive of all stakeholders together. Same goal of all stakeholders.
Yeah. Well, at the beginning of the interview, I mentioned the 4 ingredients. I think I can just repeat those. It's basically the stable ambition, clear goals. We want investments, we want reforms, we have collaboration. And maybe to those I would just add, we need investment in the skills. This is, I think, very important because we need skills which we don't know even that we need them. This is really situation such a way that we really need education very good. Second thing is that in order to ensure the stability of the society, and every transition generates also disadvantaged groups. So we need to make this transition fair and inclusive. So we need to also think about the investments and the spending in that area to actually support that nobody feels behind. And the third one, I think what we need a good example, the success stories, to sell, to show that, look, this is somebody, or some business idea, business company. This is what they achieve, and this was the drivers, how they manage, that the others get inspired. So, as you said, leaders also by example, doing by example.
You can watch the complete interview on our YouTube channel. After this interview, let's return to our local reporter. Charles, I see you're couch surfing at the MAC. Are we in for a lecture on psychoanalysis?
Nope, my friend, I'm over here and could tell you a whole lot of stories about the father of psychoanalysis, Dr. Sigmund Freud, the one and only. For 47 years, until 1938, when he had to flee from the Nazis, at Berggasse 19 in Vienna lived the man who was known for far and wide for delving into the deepest recesses of the human mind. Now, his former house is the Sigmund Freud Museum. An interesting museum to visit, but not the story I'd like to share with you today. After a long day of treating his patients, Sigmund Freud was looking for some solace and inspiration in one of Vienna's coffee houses, like over here at the Café Landmann. One day, Sigmund Freud is sitting here in the Café Landmann, having his coffee as usual, smoking his cigar as usual, and then suddenly he discovered a specific, peculiar ground on his frozen coffee, and he was wondering, and so he discovered maybe there might be a relation between what can I see and what does it mean. And so that is the revelation of coffee ground reading, or as Dr. Sigmund Freud called it, dasiography. Let me tell you about the Viennese coffee house culture that was included by the UNESCO in the National Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage. The tradition of Viennese coffee house culture began near the end of the 17th century, is characterized by a very special atmosphere. Typical elements of a Viennese coffee house are the interior design, details in style of historicism, and aspects like these alcoves and the newspaper table. As we say in Vienna, the coffee house, that's a place in which time and space is consumed, but only the coffee is on the bill.
Can you tell us something about the different coffee types you can order, like the Wiener Melange?
I could, and I can tell you we have like minimum 17 different types of coffee here to taste, so come over.
That would be wonderful. In the meantime, please watch the second episode of our Challenge for the Green Meeting certification. With Doreen.
Enhancing society together is the motto of Royal Haskoning DHV, who supported the welcome reception of ChemCon Europe 2023. This aligns perfectly with our aim to get the Austrian eco-label for green events, which promotes the use of environmentally conscious locations, and as a bonus, the Museum of Applied Arts was within walking distance of our conference venue. The MAC is committed to sustainability and, to the best of its ability, strives to make an effective contribution to overcoming the global crisis threatening our climate and ecology. I think this is subtly symbolized in Gustav Klimt's The Tree of Life here at the MAC. The central tree in the painting is a universal symbol of life, growth, and the cyclical nature of existence. It represents the interconnectedness of all living things and the continuous renewal of life. The MAC has set itself the goal of being climate neutral by 2030.
I'm now with Charles at Café Landmann to learn more about the various types of coffee they serve in this great Viennese coffee house, where coffee isn't simply coffee. Charles, the menu offers almost 20 varieties of coffee. What did you order for me?
Well, I know, and I was pretty sure you might prefer a small espresso, maybe a large espresso, or what we call a verlängerte, small espresso with some more water, you know, different types, simple way of calling it. But you got something very special here, and that is something we call in German an Einspanner.
Okay, and what does Einspanner mean?
You might have seen already a lot of guys running around the horse carriages, and you know, there were much more early days, and they had to work hard all day long. So what did they do? They needed a coffee. In one hand, they had the coffee, in the other hand, they could ride a horse. And so it's covered with some whipped cream to keep the coffee warm.
It tastes great. What are you having?
Well, I took a mélange, which is very common here in Vienna, from the French word mélanger, mixing, half coffee, half milk, and it's covered with a little froth of milk. You could also cover it with a little whipped cream, and then it would be a Franziskaner, the Franciscan monks.
With the famous Sachertorte. I would suggest please take a bite and tell us a bit about the famous Sachertorte. Then I will go back to the studio for the statement of the day.
See you later, my friend. A fantastic cake. You get it everywhere, all around Austria, and especially in the coffee houses. It's named after a former pastry chef, Franz Sacher. He was an apprentice still in 1832 when he was working at a cafe near the Imperial Palace, and Prince Metternich ordered a cake for his private party. But they only had the cheapest ingredients available: chocolate, apricot jam, flour and sugar, and eggs. And out of these super simple ingredients, Franz Sacher created this cake which has been named after him. And yeah, you get it everywhere, but only at the Hotel Sacher you get the original Sacher cake. And the best one all around the world, of course, is made by my mother.
Charles, thank you for this comprehensive story on coffee. Comprehending the impact of the REACH and CLP revision on other legislation is not as easy. So I'm happy that Ulrich Wietschorke is here today. Uli, welcome.
Thank you, Geert. Nice to be back at ChemCon.
Uli, the REACH and CLP revision impacts other legislation, like for instance food packaging.
Well, the impact on food packaging is significant because REACH adds new data requirement and CLP adds new hazard classes. Now, one of the major drivers is the assessment for regulatory need. These assessments are made on a worst-case assumption on hazardous, and this can also impact food contact substances being part of this group.
And your statement is?
The REACH and CLP revision will be a challenge to industry.
Uli, thank you for your statement. Let's go to the forecast and see what we have on our menu today. Not surprisingly, we start with the roadmap and impact of EU chemical strategy for sustainability and the REACH and CLP revision, with among others DG Environment on the REACH revision and CEFIC on the priorities and opportunities of the chemical strategy for sustainability for industry. Furthermore, ECHA on lessons learned from the Joint Evaluation Action Plan and registration compliance. And also insights in the mixture allocation factors and the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive. In the afternoon we focus on the implementation of the One Substance, One Assessment, including grouping as an effective tool for authorities and industries. Furthermore, we look into drinking water requirements and global regulations for cosmetics products and nanomaterials. Thank you for watching and enjoy your day.